The Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr., is being grilled by a Senate panel because last week, Trump, working alongside RFK Jr., fired Susan Nares, who was the CDC director, who had just been confirmed like a month ago. And she was fired, and then 4 other CDC officials resigned in protest and in solidarity with her. And this is just like the latest horrific action that RFK Jr. has taken to kind of purge the CDC of anybody sane and with a scientific or medical background.
It's appalling that he has any say in this at all, and that this isn't just, he's just not some sort of figurehead and they let the actual people who aren't lunatics run it, and that he's actually giving recommendations to remove people is lunacy.
And he was confirmed, by the way, by this senator who was about to grill him, Bill Cassidy. Remember this? There was all this talk of, wow, maybe some Republicans will stand up to Donald Trump and block this absolute lunatic conspiracy theorist, obvious charlatan to anybody who understands public health. Well, we'll have Cassidy here who will stand up because he's a doctor.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember a lot of people from maybe sort of not explicitly partisan folks were hoping that Cassidy would show some sense, and unfortunately, all those people were gravely disappointed because of the nature of the Republican Party.
Right. Although I do think it's notable that even some Republicans are grilling him in this hearing. From what I'm, prepping for the show, I can't see everything, but it's an indicative of the tides turning a bit.
And Cassidy is up for re-election in 26.
Yeah. And so he's got to be concerned about that in the same way that all of the House Republicans have to be concerned in the other chamber about the Epstein stuff. Who's going to go against Trump, but who's going to sign on to this discharge petition? Because there's growing momentum with Boebert saying yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene saying yes, Thomas Massie. It's putting these Republicans who in the House, of course, they're all up for re-election in 2026. It's putting them in an uncomfortable position because I think that issue, it's not going to motivate people to turn out, I think, against you.
Demoralize your voters.
But it demoralizes the base of people that thought that the Republicans cared about Epstein and sex trafficking. Laugh along with me. But it is like a bit of a,
There's a non-trivial part of the coalition that turned out to vote because they thought they were electing Liam Neeson and Taken.
Exactly. And we want those votes depressed. Some of them may turn and vote for Democrats, but majority of them are not going to. And it's just important that it's on display for them that their representative is a piece of garbage who actually is lying to them the entire time. So Bill Cassidy is trying to, stave off a potential challenge. And he's in the red state, obviously, but it still could happen. It's crazier things have happened. There was a Democrat elected in Alabama in Trump 1.0 after Jeff Sessions.
We started ramping up for that
exactly.
Campaign.
So crazier things have happened, but here he is challenging RFK just earlier this morning.
Mr. Secretary, do you agree with me that the president deserves a Nobel Prize for Operation Warp Speed?
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. That was phenomenal.
Let me ask you, but you just told Senator Bennett that the COVID vaccine killed more people than COVID. Whoopsie.
Wait,
that was a statement.
I did not say that.
Okay, then let me ask, because you also...
Senator, I just want to make clear, I did not say that.
We'll check the record. That's a question of fact. You also said that you were also, as lead attorney for the Children's Health Defense, you engaged in multiple lawsuits attempting to restrict access to the COVID vaccine. Again, it surprises me that you think so highly of Operation Warp Speed when, as an attorney, you attempted to restrict access.
Okay, can you pause for a second? Can RFK not breathe so heavily into the microphone via his nostrils? I've never heard a Senate hearing in this way where the guy is literally,
Sounds like he's in the iron lung.
Exactly. I guess those, gene workouts aren't really helping his lung capacity right now. My God. That's a trivial point, but we will be correcting the record. Let's keep going. We have the actual video that Cassidy is referencing, an infamous interview with Lex Friedman, but keep going.
You also said that you were also, as lead attorney for the Children's Health Defense, you engaged in multiple lawsuits attempting to restrict access to the COVID vaccine. Again, it surprises me that you think so highly of Operation Warp Speed when, as an attorney, you attempted to restrict access. Well, let me ask.
I'm happy to explain why.
I have 3 minutes and 30 seconds left.
He's happy to explain why. A bunch of mealy-mouthed stuff, I would guess, because it's pretty funny to say, because you're sucking up to Donald Trump in such an obvious, sloppy way. Get off your knees, buddy.
His tactic is to retreat into know-nothingness,
Yep.
which is like, I couldn't say that vaccines killed more than COVID because you can't trust any of the data.
Right.
Like, that's his actual response.
But here is what Cassidy was referencing early on. This was him back in 2023, what he had to say about vaccines.
Anti-vaccine, you're pro-safe vaccine. Difficult question. Can you name any vaccines that you think are good?
I think some of the live virus vaccines are probably averting more problems than they're causing. There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
Those are big words. What about the
those are big
polio?
words.
Can we talk about the polio?
Well, here's the problem.
Yes.
Here's the problem. The polio vaccine contained a virus called simian virus 40, SV40. It's one of the most carcinogenic materials that is known to man. In fact, it's used now by scientists around the world to induce tumors in rats and guinea pigs in labs. But it was in that vaccine, 98 million people who got that vaccine.
Okay.
So the polio vaccine is not an example of a safe and effective vaccine. In fact, he never gives one.
He never gives one. The polio vaccine all but eradicated polio, although we are seeing a bit of a resurgence. Same thing with measles. There was this SV40 that contaminated polio vaccines in the 50s and 60s. But since then, vaccines have been free of SV40 because of government regulations. It's the same tactic he uses when he's talking about thimerosal in vaccines, which has not been in these childhood vaccines that he spoke about since, the early 2000s they took it out because of these concerns, and it showed no effect on autism rates.
Yeah, its removal had no effect. So just move on to the next thing. And it's the same thing with the you Google RFK American Samoa, where they were peddling anti-vax stuff, and there was, I believe, a measles outbreak there that killed kids. And then all of a sudden RFK is like, well, don't look at me. I'm just, the humble asking questions guy. Like, there's a complete cavalier lack of responsibility and accountability by this guy as he causes massive medical harm.
He is not interested in health in the way that a doctor would be or that a public health official would be, because it's inherent in his rhetoric and things like what we played last week, where he talks about how he walks around the airport and sees these disgusting children with mitochondrial inflammation or whatever garbage mitochondrial deformities? Yeah. I forget exactly how he said what the second word was, but basically saying that he's diagnosing these children from afar, that he feels either that they are disabled, obese, or he can see into their soul or something like that. And his vision of health comes from a place of disgust and
aristocracy.
It's how a rich guy thinks about health, which is that if you just work out in this way or eat the right things, which I'll always have access to, or have the right supplements that I'll always have access to, then you can be as healthy as I am. And if you're not, well, what is the natural conclusion of that? You are a degenerate or you're not strong enough. And then you peel back the layers of this, and it's very easy to see how it's borderline eugenicist. Yeah. Because what is going to happen in Florida if they get rid of all childhood vaccine requirements? What's going to happen to disabled children? What's going to happen to children with autoimmune issues? These children will die.
Kids are going to die, especially poor kids.
And so it's right. This is an exacerbation of the worst parts of our healthcare system by eliminating the infrastructure around public health and and making healthcare so individualized that only folks with the right income can provide healthcare for their kids. I mean, this destruction of also the recommendation guidelines for the COVID vaccine. Like, if you don't have health insurance and you don't have some sort of pre-existing condition that can qualify you for access to the vaccine, it'll be like the early days of the mRNA vaccine where you needed to have a condition to get it before, if you were within like the healthy age range. Basically, this is going to make it so that more people die of COVID and it spreads further.
Remember when this was supposed to be about choice, and now they're removing that choice
Exactly.
to do it? And this might seem uncharitable to folks who, RFK is one of the more popular figureheads in Trump's coalition. He's against Medicare for all because he's worried that the amount of money that he's inherited, he would have to spend it on taxes to pay for your sick ass. Like that's the filter he takes all this stuff through, at least lately. Maybe he wasn't like this 15 years ago. But when he comes out against single payer healthcare, he talks about how sick and obese people are, and that is him doing the calculations of cost. Now, we know that actually it's really expensive to have this private healthcare system where we pay middlemen like at Universal Healthcare or whatever, United Healthcare, to deny people coverage. But the rich people that are against public health in general and, universal health coverage in particular are doing it because of pocketbook reasons, and they don't care. When he says he deserves it might seem like a contradiction, and he is insane, so who knows? But the contradiction between Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for Operation Warp Speed, which made these vaccines, and him saying vaccines are actually really harmful and you don't know how many people they actually killed, is because he doesn't mind if certain people die, because he's basically a Malthusian psycho.
Also, I mean, didn't he also... when he talked about bird flu, it's exactly what you're saying. Remember when the initial thought was that should just run through the population and then it'll be fine? He thinks that way about human beings.
Yep.
Survival of the fittest as public health policy, which is the opposite of public health policy.
The thing he said about autistic people not paying taxes.
Yeah.
Insane. Like, this is an insane guy who's ultimately looking at his bottom line. It's not looking at healthcare.
That's how he got pretty rich in recent years, was suing vaccine manufacturers and exploiting the anxiety that parents feel about healthcare for their children and healthcare in general, because it's so difficult to access. So everybody who isn't wealthy feels anxious about it. And says basically, follow my guidelines and your child won't be this disgusting autistic or disabled person that I have no interest in helping, but have an interest in kind of doing away with via federal policy.
And it's a wider thing than RFK or even Trump. Ron DeSantis is, like we've been talking about, doing it down in Florida, and then saying we're doing this because of medical choice. The same party that overturned Roe versus Wade and has been criminalizing women's right to choose.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.